My sister tore my complimentary card. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. Don't forget to like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel. Now back to my story. The complimentary card sat on my dining table like a fuse waiting for fire. Black matte. Gold letters. The CEO's private line pressed into the cardstock like a secret. I'd earned it with 5 minutes of courage at a gala I had no business attending. Follow up, he'd said, eyes warm, voice decisive. My hands trembled the entire ride home. Kamsi came in on her stilettos, confidence clicking across the tiles. She saw the card before she saw me. Whose is that? She asked too lightly. Jonathan Mickle, I said, and bit back the smile trying to bloom. Varden Corp. Her pupils pinched. You, she lifted the card with 2 fingers like it might stain. Cute. Before I could speak, she pulled. The sound, clean, surgical, split the room. She dropped the halves into the metal bin with the soft clink of finality. You don't belong in rooms like that, she said as if offering medicine. Be realistic. Heat flushed my neck. I knelt, fished the pieces out with shaking hands, and felt how thin opportunity becomes once it's torn. Why would you do that? To save you from humiliation. She replied, already scrolling her phone. You're welcome. But it wasn't triumph in her face. It was relief, like someone who'd completed a task. Her phone buzzed immediately after. A single vibration that felt rehearsed. She turned her screen away. I taped the halves together, with the desperation of a battlefield medic. The number smudged under my thumb, but it was legible enough. I dialed in the bedroom, heart pounding in my ears. 2 rings, a click, not the CEO's voice, someone else. A man I didn't know said quietly, "Not safe to call here, I'll find you." Then the line went dead. I stood there with the phone to my ear, listening to the after silence. In the kitchen, Kamsi hummed, off keys like nothing had happened at all. I redialed, straight to voicemail. The polite woman in the recording invited me to leave a brief message, as if messages could scale fences built from lies. I hung up and stared at the taped card until the edges blurred. Not safe to call here, I'll find you. Who was he, and why did he answer the CEO's private line? I needed context, not panic. I opened my laptop and wrote a clean, unflinching email to Varden's general contact. Met Jonathan at the gala. Card damaged, my fault. Here's my deck. Here's why this matters. Attach. Send, sandbag against a flood. In the mirror, I practiced neutrality. My face didn't cooperate. I looked like a person bracing for impact. Kamsi left for work early, perfume and power suit. No mention of last night. Her mug sat in the sink with a lipstick crescent, evidence of a life that never apologizes. I checked the bin again. Beneath the torn card's confetti were shreds of glossy paper I hadn't noticed. A brochure from Varden's rival, Radian Systems. The corner that remained showed a slogan, only one market leader, like a dare. At noon, I slipped into the cafe across from Kamsi's office tower, glass, chrome, and the kind of lobby that decides who you are before you speak. Through the window, I watched her laugh with a man in a slate suit. He handed her a small envelope. She slid it into her tote, eyes flicking around once, twice. I took a photo, then another when she headed for the elevators. Shoulders squared, mouth set. The expression she wears when she's about to burn a bridge and call it strategy. Back home, I pulled the taped card from my pocket and laid it beside the photo. My hands stopped shaking. Something larger than sibling rivalry was moving beneath the floorboards. If Kamsi had torn my card for sport, why did it feel like a chore? I opened my notes app and typed a new header, pattern log. Below it I wrote, card torn at 9:17 p.m. Unknown male voice on CEO line. Cafe envelope at 12:08 p.m. Radian brochure scraps in bin. Then I added the sentence I didn't want to admit. She's not acting alone. 2 days passed like teeth grinding. My inbox remained a quiet ocean. At 4:11 p.m. a subject line surfaced. Ray, your note. The sender, Lydia O. Operations. Varden, my chest tightened as I read. Amelia, I came across your deck. It raises questions, the right kind. Also, I retrieved something from an employee's trash this morning bearing your name. Please meet me at 8 a.m., Cafe North. Lydia. An employee's trash. I didn't breathe for a full count of 5. Cafe North smelled like citrus and plans. Lydia arrived early, tall, neat. The kind of calm that only comes from knowing where the exits are. She placed a folded paper towel on the table and opened it like a reliquary. My card halves lay there, cleaned, pressed flat. I pulled them from the bin outside my team's bullpen. She said, your sister tossed them while bragging. Bragging, the word scraped. She called it mercy. Lydia's eyes didn't blink. Tell me why she would need to be merciful. I told her the gala story. I didn't tell her about the voice on the line. Not yet. She slid a small scanner from her tote. Something between a pen and a secret. She hovered it over the card, and a faint code appeared in ultraviolet. A string that wasn't a phone number, too long, too irregular. There's embedded data. She murmured. We've been dealing with scraping attempts from Radian. The complimentary cards are now trace tags. If someone tries to divert a contact, we can see where it goes. Blood rushed my ears. You think my sister has a relationship we need to understand. Lydia finished concise. Also, Jonathan read your deck. He wants 30 minutes, today. Today. She stood, bag already on her shoulder. Bring your numbers, and bring your patience. In my experience, the first story is never the true story. As we left, I folded the card halves back into the towel. They felt heavier than paper, more like a key forged from what should have broken. Varden's 29th floor was glass and altitude. Cities look like models from that high. Every problem small enough to crush between finger and thumb. Lydia walked like she owned the horizon. I tried to borrow a little of it. Jonathan's conference room was a clear box with a table that could moonlight as a runway. He entered without theater, no entourage, no handshake inflation. Amelia, he said like a test of whether my name fit. Numbers. I pitched when he pushed margins. I offered levers when he prodded distribution. I laid out pilots and partners with letters you could call. He smiled once briefly, clarity with teeth. Lydia didn't sit. She circled, watching both of us and the door. At the 20-minute mark, it opened without a knock. Kamsi stepped in, then froze, face blanching before steadying into practiced composure. Jonathan, a quick. Later, Lydia said, voice cool. Kamsi's gaze flitted to the table. To the deck to me, you again. She said softly, almost curious. Jonathan interlaced his fingers. Miss Kamsi will need your input soon. For now, leave us. When the door clicked shut, he turned back. Do you know why your sister tore that card? He asked, tone conversational, content explosive. Because she doesn't believe I belong, I said, too fast. He tilted his head. People rarely destroy what they don't fear. Lydia, she placed a tablet in front of me and pressed play. Grainy footage, a cafe's back corner. Kamsi slid into a booth across from a man in a slate suit. She handed him my intact card. He gave her an envelope. Later footage, the same card returned to her outside our building. Hours after that, Kamsi tearing it in our kitchen. Performance crisp, timing precise. My throat dried. Who is he? Contractor tied to Radian's recruiter network. Lydia said, your pitch threatens their corridor. They like their corridors. I thought of the whispered voice on the line. Not safe to call here. I'll find you. He hadn't been warning me. He'd been warning whoever stole the signal. Jonathan leaned forward. We want to see what you do with truth when it bites. We embedded tags in a limited batch of cards. Lydia said, if a rival intercepts, we see the hop. Your sister made it easy. She paused, then added, and messy. Jonathan's eyes were steady on mine. Not unkind. Let's talk terms. Amelia, your model is viable. We spin a division around it. You run it. The word run hit me like oxygen. Under Varden. As a Varden venture, he said. With autonomy, CO track. We don't do charity, we do velocity. My mouth formed yes, my brain asked why. Why me, why this fast? Because you made it here with a taped card and a working engine. He said, dry. And because we prefer building to stealing. Lydia's reflection ghosted across the glass. Also because we wanted to see whether you'd expose the sabotage or weaponize it. You didn't run to HR, you gathered facts. You didn't burn the house, you mapped the exits. So this was a test, I said. The room hummed, a server farm of intention. Jonathan shrugged. Everything is. Including what happens next. We'll brief legal. Tomorrow, you meet the product. Compliance and comms heads. He slid a folder across. Provisional terms. When I stood, my legs remembered gravity. Lydia walked me to the elevator. Halfway there, she lowered her voice. 2 things. First, do not contact your sister tonight. Let the documentation finish printing. Second, if you have any odd calls on that number, forward recordings to me. The card line, I asked. She nodded once. Trace tags are chatty. They tell us who they're trying to impress. I exhaled. You think she's still moving pieces. I think storms don't end when it stops raining. Lydia said, pressing the elevator button. The doors opened onto mirrored walls. For a second, I saw 3 versions of myself. The one holding the taped card, the one pitching a room of glass, and the one who would soon sign her name under a word she had never let herself say aloud. CEO. My phone vibrated as the doors closed. Unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering. A familiar whisper, "You shouldn't have come upstairs." The line clicked dead. The whisper felt colder this time, like the voice already knew my next three moves. I stared at my reflection in the elevator glass, listening to the after silence that always follows a threat. When the doors opened, Lydia was gone. I stepped into the marble lobby, scanning faces, too polished, too hurried, no one looking at me, which was worse than everyone looking at me. Outside, I walked until the noise of traffic steadied my pulse. My phone buzzed again. This time I recorded before answering. Still listening, the voice asked, "Who are you?" I shot back. "Someone who prefers balance." He said, "Leave Varden's offer. Your sister is already in over her head." My laugh came out brittle. "You think I'd believe you after?" He cut me off. "Check her cloud drive." Click. Back at my apartment, I pulled up Kamsi's shared family folder. She'd forgotten I still had access. Most files were benign. Vacation photos. Receipts, her resume. Then I saw a new folder. Title in all caps. Client list priority. Inside, spreadsheets with Varden's potential partner list. Annotated with meeting times. And my name, underlined twice. It wasn't just sabotage. She'd been feeding someone my steps in real time. I printed everything, slid it into a manila envelope, and labeled it in block letters. Lydia, urgent. My doorbell rang before I could seal it. Through the peephole, Kamsi, smiling like a reunion. I didn't open. "What do you want?" I asked through the wood. "To talk," she said. "Before you make a mistake you can't come back from." Her tone wasn't pleading, it was cert. And certainty from Kamsi meant she thought she still held the better hand. I slid the chain across the door and opened it an inch. "You're not coming in." Kamsi tilted her head, amusement faint in her eyes. "Since when do we need an invitation?" "Since you started working for the people who want me gone." She laughed too quick, like she'd practiced it. "You think I'm working for them, you have it backwards." I nearly closed the door, but she kept talking. "That card, Radian planted it. Jonathan's little game wasn't to test you. It was to bait me." "Why?" "Because I'm inside both worlds. Amelia. And until you decided to tape together a corpse of a business card, you were safe, now you're in the middle." Her version fit too neatly. "So you tore it to protect me." "Exactly," she leaned in. "Varden doesn't make friends, they make assets. You think a CEO track offer is charity. It's leverage. They'll tie you to contracts you can't wriggle out of. And when Radian fights back, you'll be the first to bleed." I let her talk, not because I believed her, but because I wanted the full script. "So what, walk away?" "Yes, I can make this disappear. I've got contacts, real ones. Leave Varden, I'll handle the rest." I shut the door without answering. My hand shook, but my mind was clear. Whether she was lying or telling the truth, she needed me ignorant to win. At my desk, I called Lydia on the secure app she'd installed after the cafe meeting. "She's spinning," I said. "Wants me to walk." Lydia's voice was cool. "Good. Let her think you're considering it. We're close to identifying her contact. Keep the conversation alive." I agreed, but the thought I didn't share, the longer this went on, the more I wanted to know if Kamsi's warning had a grain of truth. The next morning, Lydia summoned me to an address without signage. The building's lobby was bare. A single desk and a security guard who didn't check my ID, just pressed a button that unlocked an elevator. Upstairs, the walls hummed with server noise. Lydia was waiting in a glass office, a tablet in hand. We traced the card tag. She said it bounced to a relay in Prague, then New Delhi, then here this city. Kamsi's been meeting her contact in person. She turned the tablet to show a grainy image. The man in the slate suit again, leaving a downtown hotel. And this, she swiped, was 30 minutes later. A still of my sister, entering the same building from the side door. I swallowed. "So what now?" "Now," Lydia said, "you meet him, without her knowing." I blinked, and he just agrees to that. "That's the beauty of leverage." She replied, "He thinks you're about to switch sides." We staged it at a riverside cafe. I wore muted colors, the card halves in my bag like talismans. When he arrived, he was exactly as in the photo, impeccable suit, eyes like polished stone. "Amelia," he greeted, sliding into the seat across from me. "Or should I call you the next Varden pawn?" I didn't answer, he leaned in. "Your sister was right, Varden will chew you up. But I can offer something better. No contracts, no leash." His pitch was smooth, but his eyes flickered when I asked, "What happens to her if I say no?" "That depends on how loudly you say it." Before I could reply, my phone buzzed. Lydia's secure app flashed. "Leave now." I stood without a word. His smile stayed, but his hand tightened on his cup. "Think fast, Amelia. The clock started when you sat down." I ducked into the alley behind the cafe. Lydia already waiting in a black sedan. The door slammed shut as we sped off. He had backup, she said. 3 of them. Inside and out. You were seconds from being in a car you didn't choose. My throat tightened. So now what? Now we burn the bridge on our terms. At Varden HQ, Lydia laid out the plan. Kamsi's contact had been siphoning proposals from multiple companies, selling them to the highest bidder. My pitch was valuable because it was untested. No paper trail but my own. The goal, catch them both in the act. We baited the hook with a decoy proposal. One so polished it gleamed. I emailed it to myself, CCing my personal account, an account Kamsi still had access to. Within 2 hours, the document pinged an external IP. That night, I went home early, left the living room lights off, and waited. At 9:43 p.m., the lock turned. Kamsi entered quietly, phone in hand. Scrolling, she froze when she saw me. You're early, she said. Guess I am. Her gaze flicked to my laptop on the coffee table. Working. Always. She sat, too casual. Have you thought about what I said? I have. I stood, walking toward the kitchen. And I think you're wrong. She sighed, like a teacher with a stubborn student. Then I hope you're ready for the fallout. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and paled. I leaned against the counter. That from your friend in the slate suit. Or from Lydia, telling you the game's over. Her eyes darted to the door, but too late. 2 Varden security agents stepped inside. Kamsi's voice rose, all pretense gone. Amelia, you don't understand. But the rest was drowned in the click of the cuffs. The next week was a blur of statements, sign-offs and lawyers' clipped voices. Radian denied everything. Kamsi's contact disappeared from the city before charges could stick. My sister took a deal, suspended sentence, cooperation clause. We didn't speak. Jonathan called me into his office on Friday. The division's yours, he said simply. The board approved, you'll need to move fast. I nodded but my mind was somewhere else. And Kamsi, she'll face consequences, he said. But blood is blood, handle that part yourself. When I left, Lydia walked me to the elevator. There's something you should know. She said, the trace tags we reviewed all pings. 2 nights before the gala, someone else called that card. From your building. My stomach dropped. Not Kamsi. Lydia shook her head. Wrong apartment number. She handed me a printout. If I were you, I'd find out who lives there. That evening, I stood outside 8B. My own unit was 8A. I'd never met the tenant, always heard the TV but never saw their face. I knocked. No answer, but the door was ajar. Inside, a desk with multiple monitors. All screensaver black. On the wall, pinned like hunting trophies, were corporate business cards, dozens of them, all with faint UV coating, visible under a small lamp. In the center of the desk sat a phone, its screen lit with one active call. The name read, Jonathan Mickle. I reached for it, but a voice behind me said, Careful, Amelia. Some games aren't over when you think they are. I turned. It wasn't Kamsi. It was the man in the slate suit, smiling, like he'd been waiting for me all along. Please don't forget to like, share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel for more stories. Thank you.